Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the door controls, part number 6115AL, power adjustable, 1 through 5 closer with a cover. This video is going to go over this closer completely, provided I don't forget to talk about something. I'm going to go over the closer. Let's start with a visual tour of the item. Nice packaging on this closer. Nice packaging is not always something to be taken for granted when a company imports material from Asia, meaning the packaging probably starts out good, but the trip halfway across the planet doesn't always survive so well. And this closer looks really great, and I think that's really important because presentation is important, because what are they selling? An imported door closer. You can buy that from countless people. The question really becomes is, what are the important intangibles? The quality of the packaging, the service, the support, the performance, not in the slightest of the closer, is all crucial. So initially, we're going to start with a review of the visual elements of the unit itself, and then we're going to get into dimensions, we're going to get into the installation instructions, how to install it, what to look out for, what to be mindful of, and everything else I can think of. So just unpacking it here, as you can see. So this is a grade 1 closer, first of all, and what that means is that this closer has been rated for 1,000,000 cycles. So that is outstanding, tremendous performance out of something that's very economical. We have been distributors for a lot of people who import door closers from Asia, and some are better than others. And there is a difference in the quality of the material. So let's start with it. So first of all, the 6115, that's going to be in a number of things. And first of all, it's going to be their 6100 series closer, but it will be adjustable 1 through 5, which is somewhat unusual in the sense that you'll have a closer usually 1 through 4 is what the adjustments are going to give you. But this will give you an adjustment range of 1 through 5. Okay, so here's your cover. This is going to be what the cover is going to look like. Nice, attractive cover. I've seen closers with this angled bottom portion or aspect to the cover all over the place. And here is probably what's going to end up being a very familiar item to you. This modern style looking body. Okay, you have certainly seen this closer countless times. This is going to end up being an incredibly universal sort of closer in the sense that its mounting points, its footprint. This is going to give you a 9 1/16 mounting point with 3/4 inch, and we'll double check that all completely. So a visual tour of the item. This is going to be a full functioned closer in the sense that it's going to give you latch and sweep control, and it's going to give you latch and sweep control, and it's going to give you back check control as well. The 5 range is actually a important thing to keep in mind, because having a closer that will go to a size 5 allows you to handle doors wider than 3 foot in a parallel arm sort of mount. You lose an entire step of spring power when you parallel arm mount a door closer versus a regular or top jam mount, of which we're going to discuss in detail shortly. So if you've got a 3'6" door on the back of your coffee shop, the strip mall that you're doing, the fast food place, you got a 3'6" door, you need to be able to crank that up to, you need a size 4 closer, but you're parallel arm mounting it, so you're going to crank that up a little bit beyond 4, into the 5 range, certainly, to get the door to be under proper sort of control. So that's where this closer is going to be really tremendous in that sort of regard. Obviously, giving you a back check functionality is crucial, which will arrest the door starting at about 85 degrees from being blown open. It won't arrest it completely, but it will sure slow down a door caught by the wind from going any further. So visual tour, let's continue. This is probably an incredibly familiar closer to you. Here is your arm, your main arm, and your forearm with your shoe, obviously the connection to the spindle on the door closer. This will be packaged with a parallel arm bracket, so this will be called tri-packed because you can mount it in one of three ways: regular arm, parallel arm, and top jam mount. You're going to get a bag of fasteners. Now, the only thing that I would be willing to pay more for every single time would be as if this were to include sex bolts. This, you know, that would give me tremendous confidence in being able to install a single door closer in all instances if I had them packaged with sex bolts. So I would like to see that from them. So the next part of this video is going to touch on all of the dimensional properties of the closer. Okay, now we're going to take a visual tour, a dimensional tour of the door closer. And let's start with the body first. And this is, if you're buying this closer and you're not sure if this is going to work for your application, this is where you want to start. Is it physically and dimensionally compatible with the holes that you already have? Overall length of the body. About 9 and 11/16. Now, from the center of the hole to the center of the hole, I'm going to need to do it on my desktop. And by the way, this closer, all of it weighs about 6.9 pounds approximately. So the center to center of the screw holes horizontally are 9 and 1/16. 9 and 1/16. The vertical center to center, I believe, is 3/4 inch. Indeed. The vertical center to center is 3/4, 9 and 1/16, and 3/4 inch. Overall height of the body, about 1 3/4 inches. Overall projection, about 2 5/8 or so. Let's take a quick look at the cover itself. Overall width of the cover, about 10 1/8, with a height of 2 3/4, with a projection about 2 7/8. Parallel arm bracket, this is going to be very typical and common. Measuring the screw holes, about 2 3/4, and then down to about 2 inch. Overall length, about 4 7/8. Overall width, about 3 9/16. Now, the forearm, you've got the main arm. You have the main arm from here to here. You've got the forearm from here to here. Overall length of the main arm. Overall length, it's about 11 3/4 inch. Measuring from here to the center line, about 11 3/4 inch. The forearm has a threaded rod, and that is to allow you to account for different applications of mounting style and the reveal of a frame, and the different templating that you can encounter. You'll need to thread this in or out to a certain extent, and we'll go over that a little bit more when we start to look at the installation instructions, which is going to be next, and they are linked to down below this video. But let's take an overview look at what paperwork you're going to get. First of all, you get a bunch of heavy cardstock. Your installation instructions, almost always with door closers, are comprised of 4 pages, and you kind of only need 2 of them. Because you've got a page that's going to give you a summary. Here's what's in the box. there are three components. Here's what's in the box generally. The second component will be how are you mounting it? Top jam, parallel arm, or regular mount? That has to be determined. That's the second component. The third component is how to adjust the door closer on either side. How to make those final adjustments so that your door behaves properly the way that you want. The heavy cardstock are indeed the templates that are included. These are full-scale templates that are certainly very handy. You're going to be dealing with a parallel arm template for a right hand or a left hand reverse, and then a left hand or a right hand reverse application. You're then going to have templating for your what they call standard application or regular arm for a right and then left. So if there were three mount types, it would be logical that there would be three different templates, and that is the case here. Then you're going to have your top jam installation for a right hand and a left hand. So the next part of this video is going to be to review that part of the installation instructions that discuss what it is that we're supposed to have. Okay, now let's start with the components. And the installation instructions are indeed linked to down below this video. And let's take a look at that link and make sure that everything works correctly. There we go. So page 1, upper right-hand corner, your components. Yes, you are going to... these installation instructions will deviate slightly because those installation instructions don't incorporate the fact that this closer is a full cover style closer. So you've got the closer body. Below that is the pinion cap. You don't have a pinion cap because you've got a full cover. This is the pinion cap. You have your PA bracket or parallel arm bracket. You have your arm assembly. Your main arm, your forearm, your lock nut, your foot, your elbow washer and screw. That's a very important screw. Don't lose that. It's a funny thread. It's an unusual thread. And then, of course, you have your package of fasteners. All the bolts that you're going to need to do a wood installation. You'll have self-drilling screws if you're doing a metal installation as well. You'll get flathead machine screws as well, which would be 1/4 that you would drill and tap. If it's a hollow metal door, it's most likely that the door is reinforced. So you can drill and you can tap that hole to put that in with your machine screw. Alternatively, you can do sex bolts, which would be, if it's a wood door and it's fire rated, you'll absolutely want to order sex bolts with them because otherwise the door closer is going to come out of the door because there's no substance inside the door really to screw to. There's a link below this video allowing you to pick up separately the sex bolt package as well, meaning you can add it to your cart after you add the item, after you add the closer to the cart. Now, moving on, let's talk about the components, then the method of mounting, and then how to adjust it. But we're not going to go in that order. Let's go in the order of the installation instructions and address these issues as they seem important to us. Defining the hand of the door is important because the chart, the installation, is going to reference the hand of the door. Okay, now hand of the door is really a different discussion altogether, a different video. But the way they've drawn it, this is a left-hand door. Just go with it. You could also call a left-hand door a right-hand reverse door if the definition requires it, and would actually be proper to call a left-hand door that swings out, like you're going to parallel arm mount it, you're going to employ the back check. That would be properly called right-hand reverse. different conversation, but just go with that definition for the purposes of installation of this video. So we're going to let's just stay in order of the installation instructions, and we're going to now talk about the control function, meaning what are those dastardly controls on the side. Let's go over that now. Okay, now we're moving on to control function, and let's start with a definition. Some definitions. First of all, this closer has two controls on this side. It's got two controls on this side. One nice thing about this door controls model is that they have what's called a staked valve. Staked valve. The intent of the staking on the valve at 9 and 3 on both of these is to help prevent you from removing that valve so far that when you operate the door, the hydraulic pressure will push the screw out, allowing fluid to come out on yourself, on the floor, rendering the door closer not only inoperative but irreparable, unrepairable. Now, and having made that sort of mistake in the past, I certainly do not want you to have to find out the hard way that you can turn those screws out too far. The point of the matter is I'm pointing out a advanced feature of this door closer. Staked valves is a feature that you'll find on door closers that are orders of magnitude more costly than this 6115. Now let's move into more so the control function. We've got spring, we've got back check. Spring setting and back check, I'm just identifying them. We're going to have latch and sweep, L and S. That's important. Closing speed control is now defined, meaning the diagram left side under control function, the latch, that's about the first 10 degrees, controlled by the L valve, the L latch valve. So controlled by the L valve. And by the way, a Allen wrench is included for your adjustments. The sweep, absolutely. It's going to be from 10. Realistically, it will control what it's showing to there, about 120 degree. But really from 10 to about 85 degree is really what you're going to think of the sweep, because beyond that's going to be the back check, which is generally from 85 degree out further. So 3 segments of the opening closing arc of the closer: latch, then sweep, then back check. Important to know. Those are the ranges, those are the valves, and the back check is indeed stated BC for back check. Again, a staked valve. Moving down below, final adjustment and regulating procedures. This will come into effect after the door closer is installed, but let's touch on it now, and then we will come back to it probably at the end. The latch, the sweep, the back check. You are going to control all 3 of those valves by turning the valve, the set screw controlling the valve clockwise, tightening it, closes the valve down so that less fluid moves through, so that it moves much slower. You slow everything down. And that is going to be consistent on all 3 of those valves. Now, the spring power, if you find that you have a door closer condition where the closer is not performing, it's not getting the door closed, or it's closing with far too much force or tension, too strongly, so to speak, you will then work the spring adjustment valve here. Same sort of scenario, clockwise or tighten to increase the spring tension. You will increase the spring tension when you have a larger door, a 3'6" door, that kind of scenario. Adjustments will come into play after we talk about the installation method. But then finally, something that's really not known you can actually move where the arm engages the foot. Move the foot pivot to hole as illustrated. Okay? When you move the arm from the center closer to the hinge, you will be able to increase the amount of force or power that your closer is operating at, and you can decrease it by moving it away. Okay? Basically, you're just increasing the amount of geometry that the door closer has to go through in order to make the closer more compact in the amount of work that it does, or make the closer less efficient in the amount of work that it does. Very rare that you are going to ever play with that condition, moving the arm away from or towards the hinge. I've never personally encountered a need to actually do that. So I would leave that as a last result. I would encourage you to experiment with it, and then judge for yourself where you come to on what effect moving the forearm in the hole for the shoe has on your overall operation. Now we're moving into pages 2, 3, and 4 of the installation instructions. What you need to do now is you need to define or decide which method of mounting are you going to use. Let's start at the beginning. Regular arm, and just go with me. If you're going to install your door closer body on the door itself and on the pull side of the door, the side where you can see the hinges, that's called regular arm, if that's how you're going to install it. A very common application of that would be a bathroom door in a restaurant. That bathroom door swings into the restroom. You would normally put that closer. You'd like it to be on the inside so you don't see the hardware. So if there's no conflict with that, you go right to page 2, regular arm. If you're going to do the same bathroom scenario, but you're going to put the door closer body on the door, but now on the push side, maybe when you open the door to 90 degree in that bathroom, you don't have adequate clearance between the perpendicular wall and the door opening and hitting the wall, you can parallel arm mount it. That's parallel arm. When the body is on the door and you're on the push side, that's parallel arm. That's going to be page 4. If you're going to install the body on the header, if it's going to go on the frame itself, and it will always be on the push side of the door, that's called a top jamb. That's page 3. An application of that, you'll see it all the time. Walk into a fast food restaurant, narrow style aluminum storefront doors, small headers, small top rail dimension. They'll put the body on the header itself with the arm connected to the top of the door on the push side. That's top jamb. You now at this moment need to decide for yourself, how am I installing it? Once you've decided that, we're now going to move on to the installation method for it. There is total commonality between how all of this material will be installed using the same set of principles, same set of installation instructions, regardless of how you install it. The next part of this video is going to go into dissecting the steps of installing one of these 3 methods. Now we're going to move on and do the parallel arm installation because it's got a couple of extra steps involved, and it's probably what you're going to end up doing anyway. So, parallel arm, I think it's page 4 in the installation instructions, and I'm going to pull that up here so we can look at it together. Yeah, indeed, it is page 4. Some of that scanned information's a bit flaky, but this is where you're mounting the body on the door, on the push side, or the interior. Certainly what you would use in almost every installation that you have a door where it swings to the outside. You don't want your door closer body mounted on the exterior that will be subject to extreme temperatures and sun and moisture and things of that nature. Keep it on the inside, plus less hardware hanging outside, less to vandalize as well. So the important thing to first look at is, well, the drawing. The drawing is shown as that you're installing a right hand or a left hand reverse. They're showing it to you in all three elevations, all three perspectives, like from a blueprint. Plan view, which is the left side down below that says right hand door, that's the plan view. They're showing you the right side view, which indeed is on the right side. If you looked at that door and looked at it from the right side of it and looked like in a cross section, that's what you'd see. And then an elevation perspective, that's in the upper left-hand area. Just what it looks like if you drive past a house. What does the house look like in elevation? That's what that is. So important to just digest that and understand where all of the pieces are going to mount in relationship to each other and what it ought to look like when you're done. If this is your first time, you'll want to just stare at that for a little while and maybe put the pieces and parts together on your desk before you go up and start measuring stuff. Once you've got that understood as best as possible, I had mentioned earlier that all of the installations all pertain to a universal set of understandings. And what that means is there's always going to be the initial dimension you deal with is, in this case, the B dimension. That is a dimension from the hinge to the holes. More specifically, that is the dimension from the vertical axis of pivoting of the hinges, the center of the hinge barrel, to the center of the first set of screws that you're going to have. So from the hinge to the center of the screws. Now you'll take notice in the elevation perspective, it's telling you the side of the closer body that's towards the hinges is going to be the one that has the BC valve on it. Okay? It's not the case. If you go back and look at the regular arm installation, it will not be the same. It will, in fact, be reversed if you look at that. Okay, so what side of the closer body is facing the hinge depends on the installation. Okay, so for a parallel arm, the back check is going to be towards the hinge. That's important, just because you can install the body on the door, unintentionally install it backwards, and you'll be stupefied as to why the door doesn't operate correctly. You'll tell right away you're doing something wrong. Now, the B dimension is the first dimension and is important to know because now go to the table, left side down in the middle of the page. You can pick at this time what degree of opening you want. How far do you want that door to open? If you want to limit the door, physically limit it from going past 100 degree, you're going to use the B dimension of 7 5/8. If you say, no, I want it to open further, notice the relationship of the B dimension to the degree of opening. The wider you want the door to open, the further you scoot this towards the hinge. Make it go towards the hinge. You can have a door go to 180 degrees as long as your trim, your door construction, your depth, your reveal all permit that to happen. And while it may not be super important on most installations, it certainly is crucially important if you were installing the same door closer as a hold open. So keep that in mind, that you want to pick that B dimension to be what you need it for the installation. Once you know the B dimension, literally everything else is going to fall into place. Okay, you're going to mark your B dimension to these two holes. You know this is 9 1/16. You know this is 3/4. You're done. You do have to know how far from the underside of the header, from the stop itself down to the first hinge, very importantly, 3 inch. You want to be sure that you get all that correct. And by the way, you're done almost. You want to be sure you get all that correct because you don't want the arm, if you've ever gone through a door opening and you've heard the clanking of the arm hitting the door, that's probably because either the door closer arm is loose, it's not secured down to the spindle, it's crept up a little bit, or it's not been installed in the right vertical location. Okay, so keep that in mind. But 3 inch is crucial. B dimension, 3 inch. 9 1/16 and 3/4. That's not going to change. Then you've got an A dimension. An A dimension is going to come from the same table of where you're going to locate the first hole on your parallel arm bracket. This hole here is going to be your A dimension, measured over from, well, this hole here, measured over from the vertical axis of pivoting. Okay? They give you specifically the amount of dimension they need from the face of the stop, which is 5/16, to that first hole. Place all that accurately and correctly, and you are going to find that this is going to work sublimely, perfectly it will work. You simply follow those dimensions. Don't need to show you how to lay out the rest of them because it's all drawn there. And in the parentheses, they're giving you millimeters, by the way. Possibly ignore those. So once you understand the dimensional property of all this stuff and where it's going to install, and by the way, if you're doing a job of 10 of these, why not take a piece of plywood or a piece of 1x10 poplar or oak and make a template that you can square up to the corner and mark your holes. Make it fast, make it easy, make it repeatable. Make the template one time, and when you know it's accurate, you'll never have to worry about the repeatability of it. We also sell templates, by the way, for doing this, so reach out to us if you want a professionally manufactured template that will allow you to make all of these markings on the door. And frame. Once you've got the door and frame marked, reality check everything. Once you know you're in good shape, take a center punch and center punch all the holes, all of them, as best you can. Then pre-drill the holes for the proper size fasteners. And then at that point, you're basically ready to install. However, before you do any of that stuff, let's look at the installation instructions and go over it. Again, they're showing you that a right hand is what's illustrated, measured in inches with millimeters in parentheses. Do not scale the drawing. It's not to scale. That's what these paper templates are for. And by all means, use them. By all means. Installation instructions. Select degree of opening. We've discussed that. Figure out how far you want the door to open, and that's your B dimension. Attach closer to door with speed regulating valves away from the hinge. Okay, speed regulating is the opposite side of back check. That goes towards the lock. Attach the door closer with speed, okay, away from the hinge. Step 3, attach the PA plate to top frame as shown. Okay, they want you to literally get this attached to the header. Drill and tap. If it's been reinforced, hopefully it has been. Step 4, remove foot from forearm and discard. In a parallel arm, you're not going to use this, but don't throw it away. Put this in your parts box. You may need this someday if you do more than one of these. Then this is going to go right through the hub that's here, and you will screw it down with a screw that's in the screw package. Okay, you'll attach those two. Step 5, install the arm on the pinion shaft. Rotate 45-degree towards hinge edge of door. Install the arm on the pinion shaft. Install the arm on the pinion shaft according to the layout that you are finding here. So you've got that flat portion, and that flat portion is going to go towards the B marked section of the arm, and hopefully it's marked. It indeed is. Anyway, A, S, B. Okay? You're just going to connect those two. At that point, depending on the hand, of course, then you're going to fasten the forearm to the plate. So you'll have this removed, and I did say to connect it, or you will connect it. You don't until this step. Once this is attached, you'll then grab the arm and put it to where it has to go, and you're going to, at step 7, adjust the forearm length about the forearm elbow about 1.5 inches from door when connected to main arm. So what they're saying is you'll see in the top view, the 1.5" dimension on the left, that's where you want to adjust the threaded portion of the forearm so that your elbow is about 1.5" inches measured from the face of the door. Okay. Step 8, snap pinion cap over the bottom of the spindle, also known as attached to closer. Screws will be provided for you to run that into the body, here and here, to give you an absolute good-looking finished installation, depending on how you're going to install this. In your case, it's going to look, well, it'll look like this because this needs to be towards the top, the shaft, the spindle of the closer. And then at that point, you're at step 9, adjust closer, bringing us back to page 1 of the installation instructions. Don't make any changes right now. Test the door. Then detail those changes finely in a fine sort of setting. Don't turn it 5 times. Turn it a half turn, and then cycle the door a number of times, a couple of times. Make adjustments accordingly. If it's a back check situation, you're going to want to make sure that when you get the door to about 85 degrees, you will then begin to feel resistance. That's what you want. You don't want that door to get caught in the wind, and while back check is not a dead stop, it will help arrest the door from flying open further. You can push it, continue to push it. If a car backs into it, the back check won't stop it, but it will help arrest the movement of the door. You might find that a quarter turn either way is the difference between too slow and kind of too fast. So you'll want to cycle the door to let it run a couple of times and then make your fine adjustments and then cycle it again. You want to keep the Allen wrench because, especially in a northern climate, the amount of air pressure that you're contending with in a building is going to change. In the summer, the windows will be open, so the door will move differently than it does when there's static pressure, when everything's buttoned up in the wintertime. So being able to adjust it over time with a full-featured closer like this is crucial. Now, what you have to know is this is not ADA compliant. Nowhere on here does this state that it is compliant with the reduced amount of opening force, 5 pounds of pressure for an handicap compliant opening. Do not use this in those installations when you have to be compliant with ADA regulations because it's not compliant. However, lots of installations that you'll do are not handicap compliant, and in fact, possibly the majority of them would not be handicap compliant. That 3/6 door on the back of the coffee shop, that's a loading dock door. That's not required to be handicap compliant. That wraps up everything about this closer. If you have any questions about the door controls closer, do feel free to reach out to us. I can tell you that I'm partial to door controls products because I do seem to bump into the unexpected, meaning those staked valves. That's really important because you'll have somebody new adjusting that closer. The screw comes out, the oil comes out, the closer needs to go in the garbage. It cannot be repaired. Full-featured closer, great value, supported by people who genuinely want to help and will exert significant energies to do so. And as a result, I think Door Controls earns the consideration of you purchasing their manual hardware. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Door Controls products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on the 6115 series closer or any other Door Controls product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.